This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Thursday, March 27th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
The leak that has roiled President Trump's national security leadership continues dominating the Washington conversation. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Donald Trump says a 25% tariff on auto imports will bring more manufacturing back to the United States. Donna Warder, Washington.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visited a prison in El Salvador.
Do not come to our country illegally.
I'm Jennifer King.
On Wall Street, the market sold off yesterday as investors waited for the Trump auto tariff announcement. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Roadblocks for President Trump's plans surrounding deportations. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. government is ending a more than century-old friendly arrangement on the Canadian border as the two countries feud. I'm Lisa Adams-Wagner.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The talk about the Signal text chat app involving the Defense Secretary, National Security Advisor, Vice President, and others was ratcheted up after the editor of The Atlantic magazine published the conversation discussing the detailed attack plans on Yemen before it happened. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports that after the Senate, a House hearing into the matter left more questions than answers.
This issue consumed most of their time. While I will address this topic further in my questions, it's my sincere hope that we use this hearing to discuss the many foreign threats facing our nation.
Everyone here knows that the Russians or the Chinese could have gotten all of that information, and they could have passed it on to the Houthis, who easily could have repositioned weapons and altered their plans to knock down planes or sink ships. I think that it's by the awesome grace of God that we are not mourning dead pilots right now.
The leak that has roiled President Trump's national security leadership continues dominating the Washington conversation. National Intelligence Chief Tulsi Gabbard acknowledges it was a mistake to discuss sensitive strike plans against Houthi rebels in a Signal group text chain that included a journalist.
The conversation was candid and sensitive, but as the President National Security Advisor stated, no classified information was shared. There were no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared.
The Atlantic posted the full chat today with jaw-dropping specifics from Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth about exact timings of when fighter jets would launch and when bombs would drop. He says he was just doing his job.
Provide updates in real time.
Insisting the Atlantic Post does not show a war plan.
There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information.
But Illinois Democrat Raj Krishnamurthy says there clearly was.
He needs to resign immediately.
And testifying before a House panel, Gabbard echoed CIA Director John Ratcliffe, earning a rebuke from former House colleague Joaquin Castro.
The idea that this information, if it was presented to our committee, would not be classified, y'all know is a lie. That's ridiculous.
And while the White House says the chat was not what it's being made out to be,
the policy discussion, a sensitive policy discussion, surely,
the Senate Armed Services panel's bipartisan leaders say they want a watchdog investigation into the government's use of Signal. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump announces he's placing a 25% tariff on auto imports, which rattled Wall Street, car buyers, and car makers. Correspondent Donna Warder reports.
And this is very modest. And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
President Donald Trump says a 25% tariff on auto imports will bring more manufacturing back to the United States.
Business is coming back to the United States so that they don't have to pay tariffs. And I think also because of November 5th, the election, they're very happy. AI is coming back to levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's a new, sort of a new business, I guess, when you think about it. But it's plants are going up all over the United States, and many of them have already been started.
Last year, the U.S. imported 8 million cars and light trucks worth $244 billion.
This will continue to spur growth like you haven't seen. Before I was elected, we were losing all of our plants. They were being built in Mexico and Canada and other places. Now those plants largely have stopped, and they're moving them to our country.
But even U.S. automakers source their vehicle components from around the world, so even domestic vehicles could face higher costs. Donna Warder, Washington.
Mexico is the top foreign supplier of cars to the U.S., followed by South Korea, Japan, Canada, and Germany. And already there's serious concern in those countries that President Trump's latest move threatens to upend global car trade and supply chains. Canada's new Prime Minister Mark Carney said that the new tariffs would hurt both the Canadian economy as well as American consumers, who will have to pay more for vehicles, and added Canada will respond against the new tariffs. Audio courtesy of the CBC.
And this is a direct attack, to be clear, a direct attack on the very workers that I stood in front of, Unifor workers I stood in front of at the Ambassador Bridge, a bridge that is a symbol and a reality up until now of the tight ties between our two countries, ties of kinship, ties of commerce, ties that are in the process of being broken. We will defend our workers. We'll defend our companies, we'll defend our country, and we'll defend it together.
South Korean car maker giant Hyundai announced ahead of the tariffs it would invest $21 billion in the U.S. and build a new steel plant in Louisiana. U.S. Homeland Security Secretary in El Salvador. One America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. There is a risk of flooding for areas of the nation today. Here's the forecast from AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Farrick. John?
Heavy rain has been falling in portions of central and south Texas overnight, and there will continue to be pockets of very heavy, slow-moving thunderstorms leading to flooding throughout the day today. This is certainly the place most likely to see flooding issues today. By the time the storm is done, some places from San Antonio to Corpus Christi and Victoria could see upwards of 6 inches of rain, more rain than some in this area has seen combined for the last 9 months. While flash flooding and high water will be a major concern over the next 24 to 48 hours, at least this will help out the drought conditions across the region. By this afternoon, some thunderstorms will be spreading farther northeast toward Houston and Dallas, farther to the west. Another batch of moisture will be moving into the Pacific Northwest, and that will bring some heavier rain into western Oregon, down into far northwest California, and snow levels across the Oregon Cascades will likely drop below 4,000 feet. We'll see some showers during the day, make it about as far south as San Francisco and Sacramento. Another place to watch for some showers and a thunderstorm will be across Missouri and Illinois, though it appears the risk for any severe storms during the day is fairly limited. Most of the rest of the country will experience dry weather. It remains very chilly across the Northeast. Comfortable weather continues in the southeast and down through Florida. The warm weather continues from the desert southwest into the central Rockies with a good deal of sunshine. And that's the weather across America. In Washington, D.C. today, sunny and cool but comfortable, the high 61. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, clouds breaking for some sunshine, a high 66. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Farrick.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Amazon, Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem spent Wednesday in El Salvador's high-security confinement center, which also houses deportees from the U.S. Jennifer King has more.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem visited a prison in El Salvador where Venezuelans alleged to be members of the Transgender gang are being held since their removal from the U.S. Noem's tour included 2 cell blocks crowded with inmates. At one point, about a dozen Salvadoran prisoners were lined up and told to remove their T-shirts, many displaying MS-13 tattoos on their chests. Noem turned her back to the cell and recorded a video message.
Do not come to our country illegally. You will be removed and you will be prosecuted. But know that this facility is one of the tools in our toolkit that we will use if you commit crimes against the American people.
Homeland Security indicated the secretary will discuss with Salvadoran officials how the U.S. can increase the number of deportation flights. That's despite an appeals court decision that kept in place an order barring the administration from deporting more Venezuelan immigrants to El Salvador. President Trump has called the deportees the worst of the worst, while some of their relatives dispute their gang affiliation. I'm Jennifer Jennifer King.
A federal judge has denied the Trump administration efforts to ban transgender people from joining the military. U.S. District Judge Ana Reyes, an appointee of President Biden, denied the government's motion to dissolve her order that prevents the military from denying transgender people the ability to enlist in the military, which was set to go into effect tomorrow. The Trump administration argued that the policy is not an overarching ban and does not discriminate against trans-identifying persons as a class. The judge's ruling is expected to be appealed. Auto import tariffs impact on Wall Street. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments is a fiduciary, always putting clients' interests first. Learn more at fisherinvestments.com. Investors react to new tariffs on Wall Street. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a sell-off for stocks yesterday. Investors were worried about tariffs. After the closing bell, the president announced auto tariffs, which mixed this morning with the latest read on U.S. economic growth. Many worry a GDP number that's super low could spark recession fears. But yesterday, the Dow fell 130 points. The S&P 500 index was down 100. The NASDAQ tanked by nearly 400. And that was just after it was announced the president would speak and announce auto tariffs.
So we were due for something, and then we got a tariff headline on top of that.
Right. Yeah, the ongoing draining of enthusiasm that's been going on. And then obviously the tariffs themselves.
CNBC's Mike Santoli and Scott Wapner. Investors now digesting the tariffs that were announced late yesterday by President Trump.
And what we're going to be doing is a 25% tariff on all cars that are not made in the United States. If they're made in the United States, there's absolutely no tariff.
Some cars, in turn, of course, will get more expensive. Here's CNBC's Phil LeBeau.
What would that do to the pricing of a vehicle? The consensus is anywhere between $3,500 and $4,500 per vehicle. Now, how much of that the automakers would be able to pass along to consumers, and how much of it will they have to eat and cut into their margins in North America?
And ahead of other tariffs to be announced next week, the president said they will probably be more lenient than reciprocal. But one investor says maybe look away.
I mean, we're at this moment where the president's playing rope-a-dope, and you hear that it's going to be good, and there may be some exceptions, and you hear there's no exceptions. Anything to keep us off guard while we wait. And I just find that that is something that the stock market doesn't want. It is every day best to not think about it. Best to focus on companies.
That's Mad Money host Jim Cramer on CNBC. Copper on pace for its best first quarter of a year since 2009. Higher copper prices, though, hit the home building industry hard, and that could in turn hit home buyers. Gold is pacing for its best first quarter since 2016. Kohl's is closing 27 stores this Saturday, according to USA Today, including 10 in California. The underperforming locations are listed on the Kohl's website. The chain has been struggling, but will still have more than 1,000 stores in the U.S. On today's watch list, it is all about GDP, gross domestic product, a measure of economic growth. We're going to find out how many people applied for unemployment benefits last week as the job market remains solid. We get the latest pending home sales numbers as the spring home buying season is here. 100% of Social Security overpayments will begin to be clawed back from recipients starting today.
Overpayments. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. When we return on America in the Morning, shouting down the wartime authority deportation law after these messages. A federal appeals court is denying a request to block a ruling that bars the Trump administration from deporting Venezuelan migrants under wartime authority. Correspondent Clayton Neville takes a closer look.
President Trump trying to deport Venezuelan migrants to El Salvador under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg recently blocked deportations and ordered plane loads of Venezuelan immigrants to return to the U.S. That never happened, and President Trump has been critical of the judge, at one point calling for him to be impeached.
We're having a lot of problems with the courts because the courts want to pretend they're president, and they're not president. They didn't get 80 million votes.
This week, a federal appeals court denied a request by the Trump administration to lift Boasberg's order. A panel of judges ruled there's no reason to interfere in the case at this stage in the process. I'm Clayton Neville.
A popular library that sits directly atop the U.S. and Canadian border faces new restrictions due to tensions between the two nations. Correspondent Lisa Adams-Wagner reports.
The U.S. government is ending a more than century-old friendly arrangement on the Canadian border as the two countries feud. The Haskell Free Library and Opera House is located in both Derby Line, Vermont and Stansted, Quebec, but the entrance is located on the U.S. side. For more than 100 years, Canadians have been allowed to enter without a passport. But since Tuesday, only library workers and cardholders are allowed to cross over without papers. And starting October 1st, no Canadians will be allowed in the U.S. entrance without going through a border checkpoint. Supporters of the library say the regulation is unnecessary and fear it will damage traditionally warm relations. I'm Lisa Adams-Wagner.
America in the Morning for Thursday, March 27th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Public broadcasters fight back.
There's nothing more American than PBS.
I'm Richard Johnson.
More controversy surrounding demonstrators on college campuses. I'm Clayton Neville.
Itinerary changes for the Vance's trip to Greenland. A congresswoman could face a censure vote and protests on the streets of Gaza, but not against Israel or the U.S.
The Congressional Budget Office says the U.S. is on track to reach its debt ceiling in August. Donna Warder, Washington.
The Supreme Court is upholding a rule requiring serial numbers and background checks for ghost guns. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Safe nuclear batteries could mean never recharging your cell phone. I'm tech correspondent Chuck Palm.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Pleasant conditions today for many on this spring Thursday. Here's the forecast from AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Ferrick.
If you like it sunny, dry, and warm, there are a few good places to be today, including across the southeastern United States. We'll see some gorgeous weather with some sunshine from the Carolinas southward through Florida and west to Mississippi and Louisiana today. Another place experiencing some beautiful weather is in the southwest. It'll be comfortable near the coast in Southern California. And very warm inland, though not quite as warm as it's been the last couple of days. That warm, nice weather extends eastward through the Four Corners, and we'll have a very nice afternoon from Denver to Albuquerque. One of the places dealing with adverse weather will again be the Northwest. This batch of wet weather follows a day filled with severe weather, so any cleanup that's needed could be hampered by some rain along the I-5 corridor from western Washington southward through northern California. Fortunately, we should not have to deal with hail or damaging winds like we did on Wednesday in this portion of the country. Farther to the east, we will see some rain and a couple of thunderstorms from Missouri eastward into Illinois, and we could have a localized severe storm in this region with damaging wind gusts and hail. The worst of the weather today will be as you head south from there into central and south Texas. Heavy rain is going to continue throughout the day and into tonight. And the storms will dump large amounts of rain in a short period of time, likely tracking over some of the same areas, leading to widespread street and highway flooding issues at the very least. More than likely, some flash flooding will crop up across this region, despite the fact that in the long term, this rain will be beneficial considering how dry it's been in places such as San Antonio and Austin. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Ferrick.
You can follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. As one House hearing Wednesday tackled how a journalist somehow was allowed into a signal text chain involving members of the Trump administration discussing an imminent U.S. attack on the Houthis in Yemen. At the same time, a House subcommittee hearing on federal funding for public broadcasting featured a combination of tension and sarcasm. Correspondent Rich Johnson has more on the story.
The panel's chair, Georgia Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene, and top Democrat Stephen Lynch of Massachusetts had very different ideas about the hearing.
Rooting out spending that is unnecessary, wasteful, and frankly un-American.
Madam Chair, if shame was still a thing, this hearing would be shameful.
At issue, federal funding for National Public Radio and the public broadcasting system.
There's nothing more American than PBS.
PBS CEO Paula Kerger heard Taylor Greene lay out her complaints.
NPR and PBS have increasingly become radical left-wing echo chambers for a narrow audience of mostly wealthy, white, urban liberals and progressives who generally look down on and judge rural America.
Kerger countered.
PBS stations are focused on the needs and interests of the viewers they serve, especially in rural areas. PBS stations are the only outlet providing coverage of local events.
Taylor Greene also focused on NPR CEO Catherine Maher.
Madam Chair, thank you so much for the opportunity to address this. I know.
Is it up to you and NPR to crack down on bad information or decide the truth? Answer the question, yes or no, Ms. Maher.
Absolutely not. I'm a very strong believer in free speech, and I believe that more speech.
Your public statements say otherwise.
And then this from California Democrat Robert Garcia.
Is Elmo now, or has he ever been, a member of the Communist Party of the United States? A yes or no?
No.
Now, are you sure, Ms. Kerger? Because he's obviously red.
Well, he is a puppet, but no.
Taylor Greene has called for an end to all federal funding of PBS and NPR, but for now that question is moot. The budget bill that President Trump signed last week includes more than $530 million to fund public broadcasting through 2027. I'm Rich Johnson.
Vice President J.D. Vance and the Second Lady will travel to Greenland tomorrow. However, their travel itinerary while there has been changed following blowback from Greenland's government and Denmark. Following the VP's schedule, here's correspondent Julie Walker.
Vice President J.D. Vance and his wife may be changing their trip to Greenland and only visiting the U.S. military base, but President Trump isn't changing his plans for the self-governing, mineral-rich territory of Denmark.
I think Greenland's going to be something that maybe is in our future.
His Monday comment continuing to inflate tensions.
I think it's important. It's important from the standpoint of international security. And if you look at the ships outside of Greenland, you have Russia, you have China, you have lots of different people and lots of different places, and it cannot go on the way it is. It's not going to go on the way it is. I'll make a statement. It's not going to happen.
The Danish foreign minister says the Vance's new plan de-escalates the situation, even as the VP suggests on X that global security is at stake.
A lot of other countries have threatened Greenland, have threatened to use its territories and its waterways to threaten the United States, to threaten Canada, and of course to threaten the people of Greenland. So we're going to check out how things are going there. And I say that speaking for President Trump, we want to reinvigorate the security of the people of Greenland because we think it's important to protecting the security of the entire world.
Royal Danish Defense College professor Mark Jacobson says security's fine, timing's bad.
What is controversial here is all about the timing. Greenland and Denmark have stated very clearly that they don't want the US to visit right now when Greenland doesn't have a government in place. So it's all about timing. From Greenland's side, also from Denmark's side, it's more seen as an kind of intimidation. So it's an unpleasant surprise that we now see J.D. Vance also announcing his visit to Greenland.
Greenland's government did not extend an official invitation. I'm Julie Walker.
A Turkish student at Tufts University outside Boston was arrested by immigration authorities, accused by Homeland Security of engaging in activities in support of Hamas, and now faces deportation. That arrest captured on video. Here's our Clayton Neville with more on the story.
The video shows 30-year-old Ramesa Onsturk, a student at Tufts University, approached by several officers who appear to have their faces covered. The video was obtained by the Associated Press. Osterk was taken into custody, and her attorneys say she hasn't been heard from and no charges have been filed. Federal officials are tight-lipped, but say the woman is linked to supporting and promoting Hamas in its war with Israel. Osterk reportedly has a visa allowing her to study in the United States, and her arrest has sparked concern, as voiced at a rally this week in Somerville, Massachusetts, where the focus is protecting other students from being detained.
More later, but I want to start with an attorney statement to clarify.
A hotline number was even promoted at the rally.
The Lucey hotline is 617-370-5022.
Some witnesses say the arrest looked like a kidnapping and accused the agents of intimidation. Tufts University administrators say federal authorities detained an international grad student and that the student's visa had been terminated, but they didn't say who that student is. The Attorney General in Massachusetts called the video disturbing, and Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley called for Osterk's immediate release. This as other recent arrests are being protested, including the leaders of demonstrations at Columbia and Cornell universities. I'm Clayton Neville.
The government's money crisis, teacher training cuts at the Department of Education, and the nuclear-powered home of the future. Those stories and more when America in the Morning continues after these messages. America in the Morning continues. I'm John Trout. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett could be a step closer to a censure vote in the U.S. House. Fellow Texas Congressman Randy Weber filed a resolution targeting the Democrat who called Texas Governor Greg Abbott Governor Hot Wheels while she was speaking at a human rights campaign event over the weekend. Abbott is paralyzed from the waist down after a tree fell on him in 1984. Crockett posted on X that she was not referring to Abbott's condition, but instead claimed her statement was in regards to his transfer of migrants out of Texas to other states. The House voted on a bipartisan basis earlier this month to punish Representative Al Green, also from Texas, for interrupting President Donald Trump's joint address to Congress. America in the Morning continues. Growing concerns in Washington that the U.S. could run short of money to pay its bills as early as August. Correspondent Donna Warder has the latest on the debt ceiling.
The Congressional Budget Office says the U.S. is on track to reach its statutory debt ceiling in August if Congress and President Donald Trump either fail to lift the borrowing limit or abolish the debt ceiling concept altogether. The debt ceiling was reinstated January 2nd following its suspension by Congress in 2023. The CBO report says the Treasury already has reached the current debt limit of $36.1 trillion, so it has no room to borrow under its standard operating procedures. An analysis by the Bipartisan Policy Center says the U.S. could run out of cash by mid-July. Donna Warder, Washington.
The Supreme Court rules on firearms. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports on a decision involving ghost guns.
The Supreme Court is upholding a rule from the Biden administration requiring serial numbers and background checks for ghost guns. Ghost guns are nearly impossible to trace. They can be built at home, and there are no serial numbers. Then President Joe Biden imposed the rule in 2022.
All of a sudden, it's no longer a ghost. It has a return address. It's going to help save lives, reduce crime, and get more criminals off the streets.
Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented since the rule was finalized. Ghost gun numbers have flattened out or declined in several major cities. Ghost guns have been used in some high-profile crimes. Police believe a ghost gun used in the killing of United Healthcare CEO in Manhattan was made on a 3D printer rather than assembled from a kit. Gun groups have challenged the rule in court, arguing the government overstepped its authority. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Cuts to teacher training funded by the Department of Education are headed to the Supreme Court. Jennifer King has the story.
A federal judge in Boston temporarily blocked the cuts. The Boston judge found the cuts were already affecting training programs aimed at addressing a nationwide teacher shortage. The government argues that the judge's order is forcing it to keep paying out millions in grant money. 8 Democratic-led states argue that the cuts were likely driven by efforts to eliminate diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The Teacher Quality Partnership Program awards approximately $25 million to support high-quality teacher preparation and professional development. The federal Supporting Effective Education Development, or SEED program, provides tens of millions of dollars in grants to universities and other partners to support evidence-based teacher training. The High Court is asking litigants for a response to the government's appeal by Friday. Jennifer King, Washington.
For the second straight day, there were large protests in Gaza, but chants of death to America and death to Israel were not being said. Thousands took to the streets in several towns in what has been the largest anti-Hamas demonstration to date, with Palestinians demanding the terror group step down from power and the war to end. The protests came a day after terrorists launched rockets at Israel, prompting an Israeli decision to evacuate large parts of northern Gaza and restart the Israeli military campaign. The demonstrations are a rare display of dissent against Hamas, which has controlled the Gaza Strip since 2007. This one sounds it's right out of the cartoon The Jetsons. Nuclear-powered devices for your home could mean never recharging a battery, well, at least for 1,000 years. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech News.
Scientists at the Daegu Gyeongbuk Institute of Science and Technology have created tiny, long-lasting nuclear batteries using radiocarbon. These new batteries can outlast lithium and power devices for decades without charging and offering a safer, cleaner energy future. The nuclear cells use a form of radiation that is not harmful to any living tissue and is a byproduct of nuclear plants. Unlike lithium-ion batteries, which degrade over time and harm the environment, these new designs use a beta radiation to trigger an electron avalanche and generate electricity. Rechargeable batteries are not only inconvenient, they also limit the usefulness of the technology, like drones and remote sensors, which rely on a stable long-term power. The batteries are so safe, in fact, they can be shielded with a thin sheet of aluminum, making these beta-voltaic batteries with carbon-14, which is inexpensive and readily available. Researchers show these batteries potentially could last for 1,000 years. Find me at chuckpalm.com.
America in the Morning continues with sports. Here's Robert Workman.
Spring fever might sweep the nation today. Baseball's opening day has arrived in North America. 14 games on tap, 12 of them set to begin in the daylight. Then tonight, it's the NCAA men's basketball tournament Sweet 16 action. In the East Regional in Newark, New Jersey, it'll be 2-seed Alabama against 6-seeded BYU, followed by number 1 Duke and 4-seed Arizona. At the West Regional in San Francisco, top seed Florida meets 4-seed Maryland. Then number 3 Texas Tech takes on the lowest seed remaining, number 10 Arkansas. Friday in Indianapolis, it's Midwest Regional action, and the South Regional takes place in Atlanta. NIT quarterfinals last night, Loyola of Chicago down Kent State, and UC Irvine outlasted UAB in overtime. The Anteaters, the last top seed, still standing. They will face North Texas in one semifinal Tuesday in Indianapolis, while the Ramblers will take on Chattanooga in the other. The title game in the NIT is 1 week from tonight. On the pro hardwood, the Celtics won their 7th straight, blasting the Suns 132-102. Nuggets knocked off the Bucks. Nikola Jokic with 39 points and a triple-double in his first game back from an ankle injury a couple of weeks ago. Hockey, Jason Robertson's second-period hat trick lifted the Stars over the Oilers 4-3. Wins for the Canucks, Ducks, and Devils. That's Thursday Sports.
Thank you, sir. Trump honors Women's History Month at the White House after these messages. The search continues for 4 U.S. soldiers who went missing during a training exercise in Lithuania. NATO walked back statements last night saying the 4 Americans were dead, as the U.S. Army said the search is ongoing. The military says the Hercules armored vehicle has been located, submerged in a body of water, and recovery efforts are underway. The soldiers, all from 1st Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, were conducting tactical training when they went missing. The Avengers film has a full cast and many familiar faces. Kevin Carr reports.
On Wednesday afternoon, Marvel Studios announced the cast of their upcoming blockbuster Avengers Doomsday. Recognizable names included Chris Hemsworth as Thor, Anthony Mackie as Captain America, Paul Rudd as Ant-Man, Letitia Wright as Black Panther, and Simu Liu as Shang-Chi. Tom Hiddleston will also return as Loki.
Your savior is here!
The anti-heroes of the upcoming Thunderbolts, due in theaters May 2nd, are also on the list.
There are bad guys. And there are worse guys.
As expected, the new Fantastic Four, Pedro Pascal, Vanessa Kirby, Ebon Moss-Backrack, and Joseph Quinn were also included. Several actors from the X-Men films are returning to the screen, including Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, James Marsden, and Rebecca Romaine. Kelsey Grammer, who had a cameo as Beast in The Marvels, is listed, as well as Channing Tatum, who played a Gambit that never happened in Deadpool and Wolverine.
The name's Remy Labo, du Diable Blanc. But you can call me the Gambit.
And things wrapped up with Robert Downey Jr., who was already announced as Dr. Doom last year at Comic-Con.
New mask, same task.
Noticeably absent were Tom Holland as Spider-Man and Chris Evans as a rumored return of Captain America. However, Marvel isn't done revealing its full cast yet. Avengers Doomsday comes out on May 1st next year, with Avengers Secret War on May 7th, 2027. I'm Kevin Carr.
Finally today, a White House event hosted by the president focused on the women helping to shape the nation. Correspondent Marcela Sanchez reports.
President Donald Trump honored women of the past and present during an event for Women's History Month inside the White House.
You have a lot of them in this room politically, but just the fact that you're here and the fact that you're with us is so important.
Trump recognized the women on his cabinet and described them as the strongest women. About Attorney General Pam Bondi.
This is a beautiful, strong, wonderful woman.
And White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles.
She was just named as, and it's true, the most powerful woman in the world.
The president also spoke about historical women like Harriet Tubman, Amelia Earhart, and Susan B. Anthony. He honored their courage, patriotism, and devotion to their country. Finally, he thanked the women in the audience for their vote.
You were very nice to me. The women, we set every record. We loved it. We loved that vote.
I'm Marcela Sanchez.
America in the Morning for Thursday, March 27th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.